What's cracking, people? It's your man Cousin T, aka the Alpha Wingman, representing high-level technicians, operating globally and beyond. So listen, today I wanted to cover a topic that is often spoken about in private male spaces, and especially over on the Patreon side, I make it a point to go in on getting down to the core components of this particular subject, and that is the masculine burden of sexual performance. Now, I'll try to watch my wording on the YouTube side for obvious reasons, but what I want to do is play a series of clips that I believe really highlight the disconnect that most women and men have in this particular sort of space of conversation, and that is the space of the expectation and or burden of performance, depending on what your perspective is on that. So I'm going to go ahead and play this first clip, and this is sort of the central clip for this discussion.
You know what's fascinating? Think about it. I just had this epiphany, because when women talk about their sexual experiences, they talk about the performance of the men. When men talk about their sexual experiences, they talk about if they killed it. Or like, I killed that shit, or I made an orgasm 17 times. Like, it's an I-focused thing.
Okay, this clip was taken from a podcast hosted by Shan Booty, and I'll leave the full link in the description down below. But that quote, or that little snippet, sort of brought me back to the conversation between Kevin Samuels and Nicki Minaj, but not the initial, rating part or whatever. No, but it was a part later on in the conversation that really hit home in terms of what women are considering and thinking, even if they're in a relationship. Here it goes.
Now, do you think a man can have sex 3 times a night for the rest of his life?
Most guys can't.
They can't?
Not for the rest of his life, no.
Well, how many times they gonna be able to do it?
Now, let's be clear. In a previous video, I distinguished the difference between Kevin Samuels' archetype of the high value man and a man who has relative value. And part of that relative value is the man-to-woman dynamic, the chemistry. At the end of the day, the sexual compatibility between a man and a woman that he potentially desires to acquire. And this space, the select manosphere, however you want to say it, we focus on those aspects of the man. Obviously, the absolute value needs to be given attention to, your mission, the outer components of who you are. However, we focus on the inner components. Who are you at the beginning and the end of the day, and how does that translate into how you connect with a woman during an intimate exchange? We throw around the term alpha a lot, and I don't think that a lot of people really get the essence of what that means. Now, of course, we go into that, like I said, in further detail over on the Patreon side, but basically, there are 3 nodes of masculine expression that the majority of men fall into, socially, physically, and sexually. This I refer to as the fox node, the pitbull node, and the stallion node. Now, men who are familiar with the system over at the House of Technician know what this means and can immediately, use this in conversation. But basically, the difference between a man who is considered alpha and other men who may just be role players or beta is that an alpha is on. He's ready to go. They get labeled as F-boys or players or playboys or womanizers or whatever term or stigma that the greater society likes to try to clamp men of this caliber down with. These are basically the men who are the maintenance men. These are the men who are socially aware, sexually aware, just physically aware of their presence, their body, and how women react to them. They are comfortable with who they are, comfortable in their own skin, and they are oriented towards prowess. And the display of their sensual and intimate prowess is one of their calling cards. And that is one of the major factors in why women choose to gravitate towards these men, because we put out that type of energy, okay? And that is something that is just innate, you're born with, for most of the guys who fall into this category. But other men can learn how to identify and expand those aspects within themselves. And that's why, we recommend mentorship. That's why, and what we focus on in coaching sessions. As a matter of fact, here's a clip from a recent conversation that the Field Master Ron Wills and myself just had about this very subject. What gets discussed in these coaching sessions when we really get down to the basics and the fundamental reasons why some men have performance issues and how we attempt to address them head on. Here it goes.
A lot of men who find themselves with issues in the space of intimacy have taboos associated with sexual prowess.
Oh, exactly. Oh, that's a big thing.
And a lot of coaching sessions and counseling sessions have to do with unpacking where those blockages and those hangups and those taboos originate. And it usually originates in your original program, be it a faith-based system or a cultural stigma that your younger self was raised in, and identifying that, deconstructing that, and finding tools and elements and resources that allow you to rebuild this new and more robust identity for yourself. Because the conflict that a lot of men find with dealing with the shadows world or just intimate spaces to begin is that they don't know how to perform in those spaces, because they sense or they think that they were never given permission to explore those spaces in the first place, because of how various societies are structured. They're structured by keeping men blind to these spaces. They're structured by keeping men, in fear of, some external force. And so that fear translates and it expresses itself as impotence. That fear expresses itself as social awkwardness. That fear expresses itself as a disdain for attractive women who they believe are out of their league. And so what we do is we try to get to the source. First, let's see what the symptoms are. Okay. What's your issue? Then we try to unpack and walk back various elements that make up their current identity. You see, a lot of men identify with the vanilla world and they don't understand why there's a conflict with them expressing their primal self, expressing their space of intimacy. Because a lot of quote unquote traditional systems are meant to stifle and to bind and to stagnate that space of development of your intimate self, so that they can maximize their mission and their goal, which at the end of the day is just the organized labor. That's all, religion is anyway. But we ain't gonna get off into all that. Well,
so at the end of the day, is it an issue with the performance or the burden of the performance on the man's side, or is it a combination of factors that go into the disconnect between what the expectation of a man's role and the exchange of intimacy, and or does it have to do with something on the part of the woman? In the second part of this particular presentation, I want to cover what could be the quote unquote elephant in the room, as it were. What is it that's happening on the woman's side of this equation? What is it that we are not discussing that has been so apparent for so long, but now here we are going to address? Gentlemen, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, this is your man Cousin T, aka the Alpha Wingman, saying stay sharp and mission focused. Later.